Well, hello, house guests. Come on in and have a seat. We're going to spill some tea. And I'm here with the lovely Leanne Newton.
Hi,
It's two
everyone.
o'clock in the morning over there. So we'll just do like 30 minutes or so, um, which is perfect because my kids should be barging through the door at that time. So I wanted to talk about the opinion and the big news, and I haven't even dived deep into reading 158 pages. Um, so could you catch us up on like the highlights and your thoughts and opinions and all the tea?
Yeah, I can absolutely do that. I wanted to just quickly point out though, because I think this is such an incredible catch by Ashley. um, I'm gonna bring it up because I think this is really important. I can't actually believe because I did a ranty post on X about in response to Blake Lively. She's done stories on Instagram about all this, talking about digital violence, and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Digital violence. She subpoenaed content creators. um, But Ashley noticed this, and I think this is really important to point out. I don't know if I can bring out, oh, yeah, the bottom of her long rant about speaking up for women who've experienced violence and etc. etc. And she's put a dragon emoji. Did you know that?
What? A
Yeah.
dragon emoji?
Yeah, I'll put it on the screen. Can you see it?
No, I can't. Can you guys see it? Let me see if I have a button. I'm on my phone. uh
Oh, that might be why you can't see it. Yeah, no. Oh, no, I don't know actually. You should. But yeah, I put Ashley's post up, and I know she's going to talk about it in depth tomorrow on her live,
uh
and she'll do a great job of explaining the PR side of that. But yeah, it's another Easter egg. Um, she's put. I can't actually believe that she is that stupid and brazen that she's put a dragon emoji at the end of a really long-winded rant about abuse that she's suffered and or how she's standing for women. It's just a joke.
That's kind of ridiculous. Like, to be honest with you, I am kind of quite upset at Blake Lively right now. Um, because I had that planned interview with the abuse survivor, like highlighting real trauma. And now everybody's talking about Blake Lively, so I had to reschedule. So I'm very petty right now. um,
Oh,
because she's exploited survivors for her own personal gain. You know
yeah,
what I mean? And it's disgusting. It's gross. And I was just talking to um, somebody on that dating app, and he was telling me that he was a victim of like narcissistic abuse by his ex-wife and had this horrific story, and this case, it hits with everybody. I asked him, if he'd be willing to like have, share his thoughts on the case. And he said, he would love to, but it'd be too triggering for him
yeah,
because he went through so much trauma. And he's going through like inner child work, and he's just now realizing how narcissistic and toxic people can be.
yeah. No, that's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Oh, I forgot that because it's your your link we're on, so I couldn't share. I thought I was sharing something. I've actually put the link in the chat, so to Ashley's post, so people can go and have a look at that. Um,
Sorry, Ryan. You have to remember, Ryan Reynolds hates me, and he turns off my internet when I'm on my computer.
he hated me enough to subpoena me, but
Yes, you won that battle.
oh, I did
More
not. I
ways than
really
one.
didn't. So yeah, so you asked about the CRA, didn't you? The contract rider agreement. So that is still in. Judge Lyman has ruled that as enforceable. The reason he ruled it as enforceable, he actually he went into some detail about his reasons for some of his decisions, and with this one, what he basically said is, look, at the bottom of this is it's like a caveat basically that which says that it's to be read in conjunction with the ACTA loan out agreement, but in the event of a dispute, then the contract rider agreement basically it has priority. So and given that there's a dispute in the sense that he's dismissed the ACTA loan out agreement, but he is allowing the contract rider agreement to continue because of the language of that caveat, which says, look, if there's a problem, a dispute, this is more important. So that's why that's there. The question I have raised, because when I went through, I did a video yesterday, I did two actually. My first one was going through the causes of action on the second amended complaint. And it was just like a video to say, hey, this is in and this is out. But when I got to that particular one, oh, you can't screen share, can you?
No, I can't.
You're on the phone.
Do you want me to? But I can pull up the court docs and read it.
No, it's my ex account. I've done a post tonight basically, and I'd kind of screenshotted. It's cause of action 9, which is the one about the breach of contract for the contract rider agreement. And the reason I have a problem with this, and I've been thinking about it since last night, how does this work? And I can't share it, but if I just say what I wrote, the contract rider agreement, it's still enforceable. But the problem I have with this, right, is when Lively, so Van Zandt, right? Van Zandt is obviously Lively's company. They had someone a representative of Van Zandt to sit for a deposition. They were subpoenaed as a separate entity because they are. So they had to do their own discovery separate to Lively's, even though it's Lively's company. And that's the when you have a contract, right, between two entities, it doesn't matter who is the face of that entity, right? An entity is kind of a separate legal, body, and it has its own rules and responsibilities and rights, etc., obligations. So when I looked at the bottom I looked at cause of action 9, and what it says is so in the second amended complaint, people can go and look at this, paragraph 426 on page 138. It says the contract rider agreement is a valid and enforceable contract between Blakell Inc. and It Ends With Us movie. So how is Blake Lively able to sue for a contract that she's not a party to, as in her individual capacity? Because this lawsuit is in her individual capacity.
You are so right. If she really was serious about this lawsuit, she would have sued from Blakell Inc. because she would have been covered, and possibly she might have even been covered for paying attorney's fees through her LLC, similar to what Wayfarer is doing with their insurance. Is that kind of correct?
Exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. And the thing is, right, is the next paragraph, paragraph 427 says, and I'm sure she's going to try and point to this, it says Miss Lively was the intended beneficiary of the contract rider agreement. There is nothing in the contract rider agreement that actually says that. Because if you go down then further, 2 more paragraphs to 429, it says Blakell Inc., not Blake Lively, Blakell Inc. has complied with the applicable provisions of the contract rider agreement. So why is it? Do you know what I mean? Like, because it's Blake Link that has entered into the contract, into the agreement, and then that she's confirming by her own admission that it's Blake Link that has complied with the contract rider agreement. So why is Blake Lively as an individual suing for breach of that contract? What's the point of her having an act alone out, a loan out company if she's gonna?
Maybe, you know what you
You
sound
can't
like?
just switch between individual and corporate.
You know, so then if the lawyers point that out, she has no standing and the whole case goes away. Is that correct? Because the writer should have been under Blanco Inc. instead of Blake Lively, and the 17-point agreement should have been signed by Blanco Inc. versus Blake Lively. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been signed as Blakell Inc. It's obviously Lively has signed it, but Jamie Heath has signed on behalf of It Ends With Us movie, which is, you know, she's not suing Jamie Heath personally though, but he was the one who signed the agreement. But obviously, it says that the contracting parties are It Ends With Us movie and Blakell Inc. Blake Lively has signed. That's all she's done is sign. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm missing something. I need to look into it more. But it bothered me quite a lot because in the UK, in the UK, if it's the company that's entered into the agreement, it's the company that can sue or be sued. Because I'm sure if Wayfarer, not Wayfarer, if It Ends With Us movie had cause to sue Lively, but it wouldn't be Lively they would sue, it would be Blake Link. And if they tried to sue Lively, she would kick up an almighty stink and point out the fact that, well, actually, no, I'm not the signatory here. Blake Link is.
That's wow, she really messed up.
Well, I mean, I don't know for 100% because I need to look a bit further into it. But there is nothing expressly in the contract, in that contract rider that says that, she is. I mean, she's saying that Blake Lively is the intended beneficiary, but actually, it says that it's for the benefit of, if you read the contract rider, it says it's for the benefit of the cast and crew. It's for safety for the cast and crew. So can they all sue Wayfarer? No.
So, how do you think? So, how do you think Blake Lively's side would respond to that?
She'll say, I don't know. I would anticipate her saying something like, "Well, like exactly as she's put in the cause of action that she's the intended beneficiary," and that may be so, but it's not that simple though. It's not quite that simple.
Right. And I mean, there is also additional evidence. I think earlier today, the three big lawyers, not actually Golden and was it Come to the Brit and Little Girl Attorney, they had pointed out that on top of the CRA issue, that there is text messages to Jenny Slate stating it's now a safe set, everything is good, and that's going to totally work against Blake Lively, well, on top of the PGA letter.
Oh my goodness, yeah, that got absolutely that destroyed her. That
I love
absolutely
it.
destroyed her.
That's the best karma I have ever seen.
And I have heard a lot of people say, especially people who support Blake Lively, going, "Oh, it's a legal technicality," and technically, it is, but it's not as well. I'm going to sound. I'll make sense eventually. So obviously, she's the plaintiff. She has brought the case, so she's got to, bring a claim that where the law actually applies to her. And as an independent contractor, for the most part, it didn't. But there was one cause of action in there. It was the last one. I think it was a 13th cause of action, which was it was a California Civil Code, 51.9, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. And that actually does apply to independent contractors as well. It can incorporate them. It's not specific, but it's people who have a professional working relationship. And that is sexual harassment, amongst those types of people. That's not specific to employees only. And she still didn't, Lyman still said no. So even the argument that, oh, well, it was just a technicality because of her employment status. No, actually, she still didn't make the mark on that. But the law has to apply to her. And she's the one with the burden of proof. She's got to, make the case. And the law wasn't there on her side. And that doesn't prove that Wayfarer are actually in the wrong.
Yeah, I really think this whole thing was PR, and they anticipated Wayfair folding. But what they didn't anticipate was Wayfair's dedication to transparency and Brian Friedman's long game as, we're not going to amend, we're going to take it all the way to summary judgment.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they did. They weren't shy about it. They were quite public about it. And Blake Lively called their bluff, and she is there's no way that any production would be able to afford the insurance on Blake Lively now.
No, exactly. And I'm intending to do a whole video on Brian Friedman, because my first ever post as a content creator, I guess my first file breakdown on X was the New York Times motion to dismiss. And I actually brought this up on a video, I think it was only a couple of days ago or last week, where I actually said, look, this, and this was back then and I think it was like the 3rd of March last year. And I said, my first ever comment on this case was, the complaint from both Lively and Wayfarer are not normal. They are not what how we are taught to draft a complaint in university. When we're training, we are not taught to write this. So this is not typical. But all the way through, I have had complete faith in Brian Friedman. And I've pushed back against people from both sides, from both the Lively side and the Wayfarer side, who have been like, oh, Friedman screwed him over. Friedman's done this. Friedman's done that. Oh, he's a terrible lawyer. No, that guy is the greatest of all time, in my opinion. He knows exactly what he's doing. And the thing is, with this type of case, a Hollywood case, it's really important. The PR is worth more than anything else. And I agree with you. I agree with everyone else. I do not think Lively expected it to go this far. I don't think she thought Steve Sarowitz was going to kind of step up and put the money out there to not only defend all of the Wayfarer parties, including Jed Wallace, even though he had separate attorneys. Steve Sarowitz was paying for that. He paid for all of the Wayfarer employees who were deposed or subpoenaed, like Tara Hanks and various other who weren't parties, but they were, dragged into somehow. And he even paid for the people who, the traitors, Isabella Farah. He was paying her legal fees. He paid for Jenny Slate's. So I don't think Lively anticipated that, and I think she grossly underestimated that, and that's why she attacked him so much, despite the fact that there was actually nothing she could pinpoint that he had done wrong.
Yeah, her whole deposition is basically garbage. I mean, like, you from the beginning, you could see that she probably knew she didn't have anything. And she was prepped, and it sounded like she had like memorized a speech the night before, and it was like her first time, memorizing anything and repeating it. It didn't sound genuine, if you look
Yeah.
at her, if you look at her interviews, and you know she knows that she's cooked. She has to know that she's cooked. and
Oh yeah.
and
Well, I think she's gonna hope that her husband can, pull strings, and he probably can, in all honesty. Um,
but is
but I think,
anybody going to insure him?
well, this is it. It's hard to say. And someone's actually put in the comments actually. Sorry, I can't raise the comments, but um, new movie contracts will have a Blake clause. Yes, and they need it too. They need it because as sleuths as well. We've already come across, like, I think it's 2 other films. I know there's a rhythm section, but I think there was another one as well on top of that,
Oh,
where she basically rewrote the script and took over everything. And yeah, this is not a one-off. And Galf asked a question as well about the bonuses in the ALA. That's a really good question, and I'm not entirely sure. I think Wayfarer would have to pursue it. They won't. She won't just. It's not something Lyman's going to deal with because it's not part of the claims. Um, but I don't think that Wayfarer will. I just don't see them going down that road again.
well, they did in their privilege log, they did mention the bonuses that they talked to a lawyer about.
Yes.
So I was hopeful that when I saw that, and with the addition of the, oh my God, what is it? Corporate lawyers? No, contract.
Yeah.
Those 2 contract lawyers, that they would pursue that avenue. But I don't know if Wayfarer's, I'm just going to say this, if Wayfarer's moral character will continue with litigation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
No. Exactly. I don't. I think they. I don't know, because you see, when you listen, think about the Steve Sarowitz comments, like what Josh Greenstein heard him say at the premiere, what we heard him say on that illicit recording. Like, he does it, I get the impression that he's passionate. He cares about his friends, his family, things he's worked really hard to build up, and he will take action against anyone who threatens that, and he has done that. I think they keep it as nice and polite, and when we they've done things fairly, right? When you compare the way they've proceeded with this court case, and you look at how Lively started with Van Zandt, and then all the stunts she's pulled along the way, like, I think their kind of faith and their moral values. It's not that they just won't. They'll ignore everything and be completely um, pacifist. But I think they will just pursue things fairly. Because yeah, I think you've got to have that kind of mentality, because it's hard to become a billionaire without it, to be honest.
well, yeah, everybody takes advantage of you,
Yeah.
you know? Um, and oh, I had one question. The dismissed claims and the judge's ruling, can that be used in court as kind of like evidence? Kind of like, hey, the judge said this action or this event and this event was not sexual harassment. Can that
Oh,
can the judge's
mm,
own words be utilized in court?
they can and they will, and I'll tell you why they're going to be. Because I pointed to a specific section under a heading of objective basis. In my second video, my longer video that I did yesterday, and I said, because I went through the hearing, and then I went through some key takeaway points, explained why, I answered some of the questions I was getting in the comments from my first video as well, like such as, well, why did the ALA go, but the CRA stay? Why did the sexual harassment go, but how did retaliation stay? So I answered all of those. But I also said there's a bit that's going to piss you off. And that bit was Lyman went out of his way to say that actually Blake Lively's claims, the question, the big question is are Blake Lively's claims baseless? And then he said, actually, they're far from baseless. And that does a couple of things. One, she obviously was suing for defamation. The Wayfarer parties could have done the same thing as the New York Times have done, as Leslie Sloan is probably going to do, and filed for, attorneys' fees and costs under anti-SLAPP. But you need the case to be frivolous, baseless, meritless, etc., etc. And because he's put that statement in there, in his opinion, they now can't really do that. But she's already kind of quoting some of the things, because he did go through the sexual harassment claims. And whilst he said, well, the fat shaming one, it's clearly not gender based. And then he said the slow dance, well, it'd be ludicrous basically to deem, actors doing that kind of scene in a romantic scene as sexual harassment. Otherwise, it'd be problematic to set that kind of precedent. But he did go through and he said what Baldoni said to not just Lively, but also Jenny Slate. He said, well, yeah, the jury could actually consider that as sexual harassment. And then the same thing with the Jamie Heath trailer. But he gave opinions, and there was actually a footnote. It was footnote 27, where he even went as far as to make an argument that when Blake Lively told Jamie Heath, I know you weren't trying to cop a look, Judge Lyman actually put in that footnote that, well, that could have been just something that, an actress was saying to her producer. That's not even an argument that Lively herself has made, but Judge Lyman has done that. And this is problematic now, because we've now got quotes and comments and kind of opinions on the merits to a point of the sexual harassment claims, even though they have been thrown out. Hi, everyone in chat, by the way. Sorry, I'm just looking at it. Hi, everyone. I'm just looking at the comments now, actually.
So I have a question. Because they brought up the dance video, could Wayfarer counter and be like, well, she called this dance video, sexual harassment. What about all of her other movies where she's depicted dancing or in sexual scenes, or even in her own movie with Ryan Reynolds? What was it? The Green Lantern.
The Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Would an identical scene.
Could that potentially be used against her, even though it's dismissed? She's the one that brought it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I don't think it will come up. I don't think it'll come up at all. She'll get to tell her story, but it will now have to be kind of honed in on just the claims. So it's not about so much the sexual harassment, and it's not about, the emotional damage from that, despite the fact that she said that the sexual harassment was so bad she couldn't get out of bed or leave the house, even though she went to Capri to film Another Simple Favor. But like, now it's all about the retaliation, and now that's become it's always been about the retaliation. And I don't know how. I'm really struggling with how she thinks that the retaliation that she thinks happened is any worse than the sexual harassment she claimed was so bad she couldn't get out of bed.
So does she have to prove the cause of the retaliation or the reason of retaliation, or does she just have to prove retaliation?
No, it's got to be causation. There has to be causation. It can't just be, because otherwise, what are they retaliating against? A smear campaign is not it's not illegal. It's retaliation for the protected activity. And the thing is, and this is why retaliation stayed in, is the sexual harassment claims didn't meet the bar. They have been thrown out. But the retaliation claims have stayed because Judge Lyman said, well, she had, she probably believed in good faith that she had been sexually harassed. And there were parts where he seemed to almost make the case for her as well. But that's why the retaliation claims have stood even though the sexual harassment claims are out of the case now. So, but there still has to be a causation. It's not just a case of, well, you did this and I weren't happy about it and it made me look bad. It all has to link back to the sexual harassment she believes that she experienced.
So would the 17-point agreement be more scrutinized now?
I hope so. I hope they make some of those arguments, and I'm not sure if they will though, because I'm surprised they haven't already.
Right. And then they would have to prove, well, would the burden of Van Sham be on Blake Lively then? Because she would have to explain how she knows that there was retaliation.
No, I think people are going to see Van Zandt more prominently in the Jones Abel case. I think people are expecting a lot from it in the Lively Wayfarer case. I would hope that it would be one of the motions in limine to say, look, this was obtained by unethical, illegal. I don't know how they're going to argue it, but certain set of means, and it should be precluded as evidence, and then that would be, most of what she claims to be retaliation out. But the problem is with her clause on retaliation in the 17-point list is if you actually read it, it is so far broad. It is literally anything like pull in the face, a bit of sarcasm. It's so subjective as well. Like, who is testing that? Who is deciding if that is just someone has had a bad day versus someone is retaliating against someone for a protected activity? How do you measure that?
Right. I mean, who's measuring sarcasm?
Yeah, and to be honest, it almost infringes upon Justin Baldoni's freedom of expression.
Well, it seems kind of punitive and kind of abusive in a way.
It's controlling.
It pigeonholes you, really. You can't do anything because she can interpret anything into a joke or sarcasm or an eye roll or tone.
Yeah, exactly. I gotta
So
laugh. Cassidy's hit it on the head. He's Blake's pro bono counsel. Absolutely. We shouldn't even laugh. It's not funny, but oh my gosh, yes. No, there are so many moments like in this order, much like the motion to dismiss, where he is making arguments that no one else has made. And I think it's wild, to be honest. But yeah, by him kind of expressing, he's made a point of saying that her claims were far from baseless, and that's quoting him there. And that is probably gonna, in my opinion, I do think that's been done quite deliberately to prevent any attempt to recover attorney's fees and costs under anti-SLAPP.
well, this is going to be bad, but there are text messages where Justin Baldoni is saying that they really believe that this is happening.
Mm.
And I think that's pretty bad for Wayfarer, because
Yeah.
they acknowledged her thoughts, and now her thoughts are in a lawsuit.
Yes. And that's fair. You got to be fair to both sides. And yeah, that is absolutely true. They did. There are text messages, especially after that January 4th meeting in the penthouse, where or in her apartment, where Justin Baldoni texts his group of friends and says she really believes all of this stuff. And that is going to undermine their defense, or if their lawsuit was still in play, it would undermine their own complaint. But that's the nature of, that's what Discovery does, though. You get all kinds of stuff from both sides, and some stuff will support the allegations, some stuff will undermine it. It's a risk you take with litigation. I still think, though, when it comes to undermining evidence that's come forward, like that may be one of only a handful I can think of off the top of my head for Wayfarer, compared to, Lively. Like it's not on the same scale or even in the same universe as Blake Lively's PGA letter.
That PGA letter was very damning. I just, yeah, I just love that karma.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't believe she filed the lawsuit with that kicking about.
Well, now we know why she hid it.
Yeah. But I
She
mean,
bought
you
tooth and
know,
nail not to show it.
but we've got next coming up. So Melissa so TAG can refile their motion for summary judgment. That's due by next Friday. And then a week later, Lively gets to oppose. It'll only be on that one cause of action, so it won't be anything long. But hopefully they can refine that. Everyone, you're all aware why Melissa Nathan and Jen Abel were dismissed, but TAG remained. Do you know why that?
Because it was TAG the organization versus
The
Jennifer.
individuals, yeah, and you
Yeah.
can't, yeah. So yeah, and the laws don't apply to individuals.
So they did this all for show when they could have done it the correct way and sued the appropriate parties. Because I'm
Yeah.
sure lawyers are not ignorant. Um,
Well, no, they're not ignorant. They know exactly what they're doing, given that they filed for sanctions against Friedman for doing exactly the same thing and grouping people into claims that they had no standing to bring.
well, do you think is that a lawyer decision or is that a Blake Lively decision?
It could be either or it could be a bit of both. I mean, the lawyer will not just go off and do whatever they want. That is not happening. They are being paid for a service, for their skills, their knowledge, their experience, and expertise. So everything they do is run past the client. Every letter that is drafted, every motion that is drafted is given to the client to approve. There is nothing that has gone on that docket that has not been read and like agreed to by the clients from any side at all. And the lawyers, there's not just one law firm working for the parties either. There are 4 on both sides. There are 4 law firms. There are multiple lawyers from each of those firms working all together. So there is it may be that, the client will say, look, I really want you to do this, right? And the attorney will, if as long as it's legal, they may say, look, I really don't advise this, or, this is the potential consequences if we do this and it backfires. They have to do that. That's what you're seeking. That's what you're paying them for, is their advice. But ultimately, most decisions are, what the client wants. Well, the first question, once you've gone through the scenario, the first question that is normally asked is, what outcome do you want? What's your objective? And then you work towards that. So I don't think any of it is just like the lawyers saying, right, we're going to do this.
So is it possible that, let's just take a Ryan Reynolds crazy mad text message. What if he mirrored that to the lawyers and asked for maximum punishment?
They will do that. As long as it's nothing, again, that would risk them being sued for malpractice or being disbarred or, sanctioned or whatever. Like, someone's asked, can't Ryan make edits to the legal documents? He can suggest things. He can say, can you take that out? Can you reword that? Can you add this? He can make those suggestions, yes. And more often than not, as long as it's not going to as long as it's not going to cause a problem for the attorney or the law firm, they will do it because they're being paid to.
So, do you think that Blake Lively's lawyers have acted ethically?
No, no, I
If it,
don't. I don't. I think Van Zandt alone is, problematic, definitely. I don't know where I sit. I feel like if it's not illegal, it should be illegal because I think that's absolutely gross. Like in the UK, America's got a big, your big thing is freedom of speech. In the UK, it's freedom of I can't say it. Freedom of privacy. Okay, and your rights to your data. And if you can just, use a shell company to file a sham lawsuit to obtain, you know, covertly someone's data without them knowing, without them being able to exercise their their rights basically to object, to to have some kind of say and some um some participation in that process, then I think that's a huge problem. And if it's not already illegal, it should be. The content creator subpoenas. She didn't come to us directly. Actually, I know she went to Andy Perez, Candace Owens. Yeah, she did. They got individual subpoenas. They were able to then push back and fight them, and they were deemed to have standing. When she did it to the rest of us, she didn't come to us directly. She went to the social media platforms and did it through them. So although 5 of us filed motion to quash, you know, but the first thing she filed then in response was, an opposition to say, well, they've got no standing. And technically she's right, because we weren't directly subpoenaed. It was just our data. But then why shouldn't we get a say in what happens to our data? Doesn't belong to X. They're just housing it for specific purposes.
speaking of content creators, do you think that your subpoenas and some of your screenshots that, like Isabella Ferrer filed, do you think that will be brought up
I
during
hope so,
trial?
because one thing I do hope that when it comes to the retaliation, right, what I would like to see if this was me running this case, I would be saying if I was running Wayfarer's case, right, you got to defend yourself against retaliation claims. Now, one way to do that is to have people like there's reference to Shasti Flower's little bump video. Contact her, see if she'd be willing to testify to talk about it. I would also be saying, look, is there anyone who's actually experienced domestic violence who actually approved of how she handled the marketing? They don't even need to contact us because there are multiple motions to quash where we spent a lot of time explaining page after page after page some of our personal experience, and then saying, do you know what? We didn't align with how she promoted this movie, which was incredibly important to raise awareness of a problem, a specific issue that we personally experienced. We didn't like the way she promoted it. We didn't like the connection with alcohol. We didn't like this, that, and the other. And we explained in graphic detail why we didn't need to be paid to be part of a smear campaign. We were given our very brutally honest and painful opinions because, as domestic violence survivors, we were offended by the way she was acting, how dismissive she was.
Yeah. And do you know what? Ryan Reynolds acknowledges Blake Lively's blunder
Mm,
and how flippant she was when she was talking about, oh, can I location share you?
yeah. Oh yeah, no, and that is just you know, your star video. I mean, there's so many videos that have been found along the route of this case, but that one, I think, no one can really watch that and feel, wow, this matters. Like, and if you look at the statement she's put out today, right? She's done this long-winded statement about how, digital violence is abuse and all this stuff. This girl has no idea what digital violence means at all. And to be honest, It just sounds like a silly buzzword that she's made up. But then she did this whole spiel about domestic violence statistics, right? And then she ended it with an emoji dragon just to take the piss out of the text messages between her and Taylor Swift, basically being abusive digitally to this man.
Speaking of that, can this now be used in court during trial?
Anything can be. You know, yeah. You mean her statement today?
Correct.
Yeah, they can bring that. Yeah, because that all happened with Amber Heard. It's like the when she had the bruise kit, and she had this thing, and she was sort of had this makeup palette that she was saying, oh well, when I was being abused and I had to cover my bruises 6-7 years ago, this is what I used, and the company come out and did a TikTok and were like, yeah, this has only been around for like 2 years. It was something like that, and yeah, that all got used. So yeah, because it's yeah, yeah, no, I think I think I've covered that. Yeah, that's right.
All right,
It
I got
impeaches anything she says, about, oh no, I take this seriously, blah 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 blah. I think there is a level of impeachment. I don't know whether it'd be enough to persuade the jury, but for us who have closely followed this and had moments of outrage, especially at the Game of Thrones references, we know what it means.
yeah. I have to go in about 5 minutes. I have two last questions for you. What
God.
do you think the party's next move is? What do you think like Lively's going to do next? And what do you think Wayfarer parties are going to do next?
I think she'll go to trial. I don't think she'll settle it. That is my guess, and I think she'll go to trial, and she'll. I can see a world where she will try to appeal. I don't know if she will though. She might try to appeal the section 51.9, the professional relationships one. I think Wayfarer are happy to go to trial. They have to have something. They have to have a retraction statement to say, you know what, this didn't happen. Or they have to have a non-disparagement clause where basically everyone agrees not to ever talk about this again. That's it. We're not going to talk shit about each other. There has to be something. I don't think Wayfarer are in it for money. To be honest, I don't even think Lively is.
So, what do you think a settlement would be for Lively then, or an ideal settlement in Lively's head out of this whole thing?
The rights to the second book, the right to adapt it.
Do you think that will be revealed, or how do we? Will we
No,
know?
if they settle, it won't be revealed. We'll just know about it when we get a news bulletin to say that it's in production or something. They're going to start filming it, and Justin Baldoni is not attached to it. But I don't know. I think the end game has always been that sequel. I don't know why she's done this though, because he was prepared. He has publicly said he's prepared to let her direct it. I think the problem is for her though is no matter what role she plays, whether she's director or not, Justin Baldoni, not Wayfarer, Justin Baldoni still is the one that owns the the book adaptation rights. And I think she sees it as a brand that she wanted to build. Like her husband has got a brand with Deadpool. I think she wanted the same thing. And I think she saw, especially when she saw that how big It Ends With Us did, how much it did. Because no one was actually expecting it to be as big as it was. I think at that point then, and you can see it because it's quite summery. The way she's marketed it is all floral and summery and fruity and everything, and that fits with her drinks and hair care crap.
That's true. So, do you think the lawsuit was pre-planned from the beginning?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've already pinpointed the New York Times working at the with her at the end of October. Van Zandt was at the start of October. That's not too far away. Now, then there was those text messages in the December, I think at the start of December, a few weeks before the New York Times article actually went live, where they were talking about it, it's coming, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I think it always, I don't know if the lawsuit itself was planned. I think the New York Times article was planned and they were hoping that, Wayfarer wouldn't react because they hadn't really reacted that much all the way through and they'd always kind of rolled over. And I mean that respectfully, but you know, they had always kind of bent to pressure, whether it be from Lively, whether it's from WME, whether it's from Sony, or anyone else for that matter. And I think the lawsuit came because they filed the lawsuit against the New York Times, and there was a real risk that Discovery was going to come forth in that. So Lively then, I think that's why she filed the New York lawsuit, because she wanted to get ahead of the potential Discovery. And you see, the thing is because Wayfarer sued the New York Times in California initially, she would have been in the same situation as us content creators with our own, with the subpoenas, where she's not a party and she can't really stop any processes. So I think she filed the lawsuit to take kind of control.
Do you think that's why it took so long from Van Sham to the lawsuit filing? Because they needed time to research basically this whole lawsuit state by state, including New Jersey?
There may have been an element of that, but I know Ezra Hudson. She, she's a California lawyer. She would have been, and I think she's on the board as one of the one of the charities that filed an amicus brief. So she would have been aware that of the 47.1, and I think they may have factored that in. I think they may have considered that and thought that that would be the most advantageous.
Yeah, I think Ezra Hudson is attached to a group that actually helped form 47.1.
Yeah.
But it was great talking to you.
Oh, thank you.
I hope to see you next week.
I'm gonna do. I will try to be up because I thought it was, for some reason I thought it was like, like today. I didn't read the 10th, and I was like, oh my god, that's like 3 hours. How am I going to do it? But
it's okay.
no, with a bit of notice I can plan. But yeah, it's 4:00 in the morning my time, which is it's right on the cusp of too late and too early.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I've been up at that time before for Lauren and Omar, so I can make it work.
Yeah, and like I said, like all the chat, the super chats and stuff, it'll go to charity Healing Hearts Ranch LLC. And it's
Send me a link to that charity as well, and I can include it in some of my video descriptions as well. I think it's a great cause. Happy to support it. What did you think about, what were you doing? Because I know you were thinking about the Claire Wineland's, foundation thing. After I showed you her mum's declaration, what did you think?
I had to seek advice.
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because she was not nice.
Hard. But like Wayfarer is still donating to them.
Oh yeah, no, they're still using that film for publicity. So I don't believe the declaration, and I can let you know as well that Friedman, in his response, actually he did evidentiary objections against nearly every paragraph in her declaration, and the judge upheld all of them. He sustained every single one. So they all, apart from like about 3 paragraphs, which weren't which were pretty much nothing. Everything else got stricken.
Well, that's good. Honestly, I think I might just do 50-50 to make it fair, because I don't want to penalize any charitable organizations. Um,
You could
if
do like a no more.
Yeah,
You could do no more. That
no
was the
more.
big
Or
one for this film.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're totally
Or you
right.
could do like a 50-50 between, Claire's Foundation and no more.
Yeah. No, I was gonna do. I was thinking 50-50 between the Cystic Fibrosis Society
Yeah.
and um, Claire's Closet.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I think it's a good idea. The
um, still,
charities matter to Wayfarer, so
yeah. Um, so, and I also wanted to share the letter. I just need like a vehicle and like a lot of time. Because the
no.
anniversary is coming up, and that's gonna be a hard one.
Well, I think I'm gonna probably do a I'm not doing enough live streams, and I do need to do some. So I was gonna do a live stream, probably after the weekend now because it's Easter weekend. Um, I'll if you're around, and I'll check in with other people like Cassidy and Lauren, see what they're doing. Are you up for that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Fab, yeah, and then we can because what I'd like to do something like you know maybe a top, what are our moments of Lyman's, which are the worst, some of the great moments of Friedman or any of the other lawyers, or who is the biggest prat, basically. And we all know Gottlieb's got that in the bag.
Oh, you know what? We could share some of asshole media's Gottlieb photos and stuff, and
Oh my god, yeah.
her stuff is amazing.
Yeah, no, we need to. Her stuff is golden. I just love it. So it makes me laugh. Yeah, we'll definitely do that because it's great to have visuals as well.
Yes. And I can always join on my phone.
Yeah,
That
I'll do the presenting next time so I can just share stuff.
yeah, that'll be
Yes, exactly. Ezra's greatest hits. We will do that. All right. Well, it's lovely to see everyone in the chat again. It's just so nice. I wish I could say hi to everyone individually, but I will spend more time when we do our next live, and it's not like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, get some sleep. I'll talk to you later.
All right, then. Take care. It's lovely speaking to you again.
Oh, you too. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.